Hello. Today I'm going to discuss a topic about uniform and kit conversions. It's a topic that shows up quite a bit in reenacting and collecting communities. I'm basically going to ask the question, is this okay? Should you be allowed to do this? And for this video, I actually have a script. I'm going to try to be reading off the script because I tried making this video like 5 times and every time it became way too long. So now I made a definition for what a conversion is. And that is the deliberate modification of original uniforms or equipment to either A, emulate another item that may or may not be related to the original, or B, restore an item that was modified in actual service back to a desired earlier stage. Not included in this is things like active conservation or repair to items that are actually in danger of being destroyed. The first example I'm going to bring up is the example of Swedish M39 and M39-58 uniforms. I'm not going to go really into depth about the uniforms themselves, but this it was a uniform that Sweden used during and after the Second World War, and because they have some resemblance to German uniforms, it's been a common practice for many decades to buy these cheap Swedish uniforms and convert them to German uniforms. This was very common back in the day. It's not super common now, but it still happens because it was so hard to get decent reproductions of German uniforms. And in fact, you can also see this in Band of Brothers. A lot of the German extras are wearing Swedish uniforms that have been converted, and once you spot that, it's very, very hard to unsee. Now I get it. I understand why they did that. They could buy them cheap and just convert them, and not have to buy like 1,000 custom-made uniforms. You can't make a Swedish uniform look like a German one. To the untrained eye, sure it may not look that different, but if you know what you're looking at, no, they don't look the same at all. Like this also happens in the collecting community for some reason. Like you take a Swedish uniform, you make it look German, and you put insignia on it. Like, okay, that's not really a collector's item. Like, there's no historical provenance behind that item. There's no like historical context at all. It's just a display piece for swastikas, basically. But another example of doing this sort of conversion is like British battle dress, like post-war battle dress, just converted into like wartime production or wartime models, more specifically. This has also been very common, and I also see it a lot even to this day, despite good reproductions being available. Like, if you're on a budget, just buy post-war battle dress and just convert it. Yeah, I'm sure it's cheaper, but you're still like. So this is a conversion that's harder to spot unless you get up real close. I've seen converted items, and it's like you can never get it to be 100% right. Like even if it's hard to spot, you're essentially just taking original items and ruining them. Really, it's not that It's not like I don't understand the reasons behind it. It's just for many, many years, like post-war British battle dress were cheap and available in many sizes, and all that stuff. But like we're getting to a point where you're actually starting to like run out of post-war battle dress because of that, and the same with Swedish uniforms too. We're starting to run out of unmodified uniforms, or unconverted uniforms, which is a shame. And I think you see where I'm going with this. I don't think it's right to convert uniforms, like original items. The main argument is, for me, is basically you're ruining the historical authenticity. That's my main argument. I'm gonna fill it out a bit as we go on, and as we do that, I'm gonna mention another Swedish example, but this is example of definition B that I mentioned earlier, and it's so after the war, like Sweden modified or modernized a lot of its uniforms to a more modern standard, and this included like the aforementioned M39 uniforms. It wasn't a very deep conversion done at the time, but it's still enough that it's not authentic for the Second World War. Like if you want to reenact the Second World War Swedish Army. So what's been very common practice in the Swedish reenacting community is that you take one of these cheap post-war modified uniforms and you convert it to a wartime uniform. And it's not a super intricate conversion process. Like I know there are charts made like guides made to make it easier. But like still, we're going back to the argument of like it's not authentic. You're essentially just modifying a existing item with a historical context and maybe even like a specific provenance, and you're just removing it. And it also makes, like, especially in this case, it makes it easier to like sell it as a fake. And I'm sure there are already like fake uniforms being sold as if they were original, which is a real shame. Like, it kind of just ruins the hobby, I think. But another example is so German Stahlhelms. Like after the war, many countries continued to use them because they were available, and often people got them for free or whatever. But in the German World War II reenacting scene, it's very hard to get accurate reproductions. So what a lot of people do is that they take some of these helmets and they convert them back to German standards, like especially in the case of Finnish M40-55 helmets. The shells are pretty much spot on for German M40 helmets. Again, we're getting to the point where like actual Finnish used helmets are getting rare and expensive because like you're essentially trying to fulfill a temporary need. That's really what you're doing with converting kit like this. You're excited to reenact and you want to get your kit, you want to do it right, you want to do it, want it to be authentic and accurate and all of those things. It's really a shame because you're just destroying historical context really. And a particularly horrific example was I'm sure many of you have seen this, the interwar Afghanistan Stahlhelm. It was made in Germany and then exported to Afghanistan in the interwar years. And it was in mint condition. Someone who had been in Afghanistan, serving with some military force, bought it there, brought it back home, and then sold it to a collector who just, I hesitate, restored it to German World War I standard. So yeah, it looks like a German World War I helmet now, but he destroyed a super rare item just to satisfy his own needs. And that's really the core of this video. Like, think twice. Like, is this something you really want to do? Like, do you want to destroy a piece of history just because you have something you desire right now? I don't know. Sounds a bit fishy to me. My closing statement would basically be, don't convert items, just as a general rule. I understand that like milsurp in general can have a lot of usage value, like cheap workwear, cheap tools, cheap whatever, and just use it. And in many cases, these items can being used for many decades without really taking any damage. And that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like taking an item with a specific historical context and try to change it to be something else that it isn't, like for the purpose of collecting or reenacting. That's really my main argument. So channel your inner antiquarian. Don't do uniform conversion. But if you have good counter arguments, please leave them down below because I want to hear what you guys have to say. But that's basically it for this video. Thank you for watching.